I was gonna get in line at Starbucks there to get a little snack for breakfast. I hadn't eaten any breakfast, but I think I'm gonna go over and get on the safari instead. Look at what we have here. I think they're calling these character cavalcades.
Hey there! Look over to the Discovery River. It's some of your favorite fun-loving pals.
Welcome to Harambe, port of East Africa. Navigator characters. Last safari will depart Harambe at 6 p.m. And this must be the line for the safari. And it is. Just gonna pull the app up and look at the wait times. Good morning.
Welcome to Kilimanjaro Safari.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the safari. 55-minute posted wait time. I should have looked at my watch. I keep forgetting to do that. To check to see how accurate these wait times are. This line actually was pretty big. I came from way out there, down by where the Festival of the Lion King usually takes place. I think it's still been moving pretty quickly though. This is a long queue inside here also though, so back soon. Please proceed. It's been a long time since I've gone through the standby line to see the actual queue, since I usually do a fast pass for this.
The male lion, king of the beasts, supreme hunter of the African plains.
Before you begin your trip, you should know that the unpaved roads of the Harambe Wildlife Reserve pass through rough and rugged terrain. You may experience bumps and sudden jolts on your safari adventure. To ensure a safe and pleasant trip,
Alright,
you should be in good health and free from high blood pressure,
getting ready to ride the Kilimanjaro Safari. You see what they've done for social distancing. Got dividers between the rows.
Here on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve today. Now the first thing that I want to point out to you as we start to head out onto the reserve is going to be that animal spotting guide up above your heads. It'll help us identify some of the animals that we might get to see out here today. Although based on their migration patterns and times of day they're most active, we may not see every single animal up there on the guide, but we usually have some pretty good luck. We also got the all clear to go ahead and enter right into the reserve, so I want to give everyone a quick final reminder to make sure you're holding on to any loose personal belongings, because I can't stop to pick anything off if it falls out. And that does include face coverings as well. They are required even out here on the reserve. Now we're off to a really great start down here in the Little Aturi Forest. The lighter tan antelope over here on our left are the greater kudu, and those are going to be female greater kudu, which we can tell because only the males of the species grow horns. A little trickier to spot behind the bushes on our right. There is an okapi over there. The okapi does have some pretty stylish zebra pants on, but they are not related to the zebra. They are actually the only known relative of the giraffe. We know the okapi and the giraffe are related based on the shapes of their skulls, their long necks, and also actually their tongues. The stripes on the okapi's legs, though, are not just for fashion, they are for function as well. That'll be what helps them camouflage themselves among the trees down here. And the okapi is also so good at hiding that they weren't even discovered by Western civilizations until about 1901. Now we're getting a pretty great look at that black rhino over there on our left. The black rhino does get pretty big. They'll weigh around 3,000 pounds. Even though they get that big, they can still charge at a pretty impressive 35 miles an hour. But they're also known for being pretty territorial, so we're not going to hang out down by their watering hole for too much longer here. Luckily for us, though, they are not known for their eyesight and can typically only see about 10 feet in front of them. The darker brown antelope over on the right are the bongo. The bongo are known as the ghosts of the forest because they have that dark brown, almost rust-colored fur and white markings that come down their sides, allowing them to mimic the appearance of sunlight coming through the trees during the day. The bongo also have horns that grow slanted back away from their heads, allowing them to run through the brush relatively quickly and quietly without having to worry about getting tangled on any of the branches that are underneath. As we start to make our way back out of the forest, we're also getting that quick glimpse of the saddle-billed stork. You'll get the same because of the bright yellow saddle marking up at the top of its peak. Now, even though we're headed out of the forest, we're just going to keep making our way out towards the savannah. And I usually find the best way to do that is by following along the Safi River that runs through the reserve. The river is another great watering hole for the animals and therefore a really important part of their everyday lives. And it's also home to some of the water-dwelling animals as well. So we'll need to be on the lookout for things like the Nile hippopotamus and maybe even some Nile crocodile too. The hippos do tend to be a bit on the trickier side to spot, which may sound a little silly at first since they weigh around 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. But being that big also makes them too dense to be able to swim. So in the water they sink all the way down to the bottom where they can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes at a time. Now the hippos are also nocturnal animals, so we don't usually see them come out of the water until it's a little bit closer to nighttime. That'll be when they do their grazing along the riverbanks. When they come out of the water, they also have a lot of different noises they can use to communicate with one another, but their most distinctive is actually known as a wheeze honk. The gray and white birds that are nesting along the riverbank are the pink-backed pelican. Pelican are famous for the pouches they have on their beaks, but those pouches also serve some really important purposes. And one of the ones that not as many people may know about is that birds actually don't sweat. So what the pelicans can do instead is wiggle that bottom pouch back and forth, allowing them to circulate the air around their bodies to help them cool down instead. As we continue our journey out towards the savannah, we are going to be crossing the river on this bridge. And we're going to cross them really carefully because those are the Nile crocodile that I mentioned a moment ago that are underneath. And they're one of the animals here on the reserve that we definitely don't want to mess with. They're another animal that's known for being territorial, but they are also known for their jaw strength. In fact, the Nile crocodile snaps their powerful jaws closed, exerting around 2,000 pounds per square inch worth of pressure when they do. That's strong enough they can snap the bones of their prey when they eat if they needed to. But they can also control that jaw strength surprisingly well. And I also think that actually make a pretty great parent. Because when they have eggs that are getting ready to hatch, crocodiles can roll them around their mouths to help crack the shells. And then once the babies have been born, they can flip them up into their mouths and keep them in there until they're big enough to protect themselves. From the top of the hill here, we're getting our first glimpse of the savannah down below. And looking out over the landscape, we can really tell how it's shaped by the animals that call it home. A lot of the grass is going to be relatively short thanks to antelope and hoofstock species that come through and graze on it. And most of the trees don't have very many low-hanging leaves either, thanks to giraffe towers that graze on those. Now I am hoping we're going to have some great giraffe spotting out here today. They are very active animals, spending about 18 to 20 hours a day grazing, which may sound pretty nice to us at first, but kind of the trade-off that they make with that is that out of the remaining 4 to 6 hours in a day, they really only spend about 30 minutes of that time at rest. Right as we come down to the bottom of the hill here, though, we are getting a fantastic look at these Hartman's mountain zebra. We can tell the difference between zebra species by looking at their stripe patterns. The mountain zebra have stripes that get thicker as they get closer to their hindquarters, and they have those white bellies. But don't let the white bellies fool you. They are going to be a species that is black with white stripes. And if you ever wondered how we can tell the difference, it's just by looking at the tips of their noses. Now there is a den over there. It looks like there's a pack of African painted dogs asleep inside. Now they're called painted dogs, but they are not quite the same as our pets at home. In fact, they are going to be some of the most successful predators that can be found out here on the savannah, hunting with about a 90% success rate. That's because they're really great at working together and communicating as a pack. And they also have some really impressive endurance and stamina as well, with the ability to chase most of their prey to the point of exhaustion if they needed to. Now they're also called painted dogs, but they are not quite related to our pets at home either. They are their own separate branch of the canine family, and we can tell the difference between the two species by looking at the shapes of their paws. One of the animals that does tend to be a bit braver is going to be back there by the termite mound, and those are the sable antelope. The sable antelope have long, thin horns that grow pointed back away from their heads, making those horns a great defense mechanism that will deter predators from jumping onto their backs. Now it is pretty common, especially when there are predators in an area, that we'll see a lot of the antelope and hoofstock species start to come together. And that's just how they can help defend one another. They'll take turns keeping watch. And they're also so smart that they all know the sound of one another's distress calls. So no matter who does spot trouble first, everyone else knows when they need to get up and start running as well. We're going to come around this corner real careful here because that zebra is a little close to the road. Now fully grown, the mountain zebra will be around 5 feet tall and can weigh around 700 pounds. They don't get a whole lot of their height from their legs during their lifetime though, because when a zebra foal is first born, their legs are already pretty much at their full adult length. Now even though these Ankoli cattle have some really big horns, their horns are not necessarily used for defense. They're actually used to help regulate their body temperatures. Their veins run all the way up to the tips of those horns, allowing them to circulate the blood around inside to help it cool down, and then they'll circulate it back down to their bodies afterwards. The really small tan antelope that are over here with them are the springbok. The springboks stay pretty small. They're actually all fully grown at around 3 feet tall. Despite their size though, they can jump about 6 feet in the air from a standing position, or they can leap 13 feet forward when they've got a running start, which is also kind of how they got their name. The name Springbok is already a really good one for them, but it is also going to be Afrikaans for jumping buck. Another animal that gets its name from an Afrikaans word is going to be the white-bearded wildebeest. Wildebeest is Afrikaans for wild beast because of the black markings on their faces and coats, though they are also sometimes referred to as gnu, spelled G-N-U, because of the noise that they make instead. It looks like we may have caught up to a giraffe tower in these taller trees up ahead. The giraffes do like to be near the tall trees because they can graze out of them pretty easily. Fully grown, an adult giraffe is going to be about 18 to 20 feet tall, making them one of the tallest animals in the world. But the other thing that really helps them out is actually going to be their tongues. A giraffe tongue is approximately 20 inches long, and those tongues are also prehensile, which is just kind of a fancy way to say that they can use them a lot like how we use our hands, using their tongues to wrap around the leaves to pull them out of the trees and into their mouths. We're also going to continue down this road a little farther up ahead here because that is a pretty big tree that's been knocked down, and that is usually a great sign of elephant activity in an area for us. Well, it looks like the culprits might still be at the scene of the crime here. Now we can usually tell when elephants are on the move through the reserve when we see trees like this knocked down, because the elephants don't always have the same height advantage as the giraffes. They really only get to be about maybe 14 feet tall. But what they do have on their side instead is going to be their strength, And they are plenty strong enough to bulldoze the trees down if they need to. Elephants like these ones also need to rely on a lot of their resources when they eat, because they do need to eat around 300 to 500 pounds worth of food in a day, and also drink around 50 gallons worth of water. Once they can reach what they need though, they can then use their trunks to pick it up, because their trunks are also prehensile. Even though the elephants eat so much food during the course of their day, so far there seems to be a lot of trees knocked down in this area, and so far we've only seen those 2 elephants, which would be a lot of work for them to have done on their own. So I'm hoping that just means that more members of the herd have already been through this part of the reserve, and maybe just moved a little farther up ahead, so we might be able to catch up to them as well. Now, it's not always too unusual to sometimes see 2 elephants kind of doing their own thing away from the main herd though. The herds are matriarchal societies, so females and babies all stay in one family herd together. But then as the males start to get a little bit older, usually around the time they're 12 or 13, that's around the time they leave that family herd and go off either on their own, or they may sometimes find other males to form a small bachelor herd with instead. Marks and footprints in the clay there, usually another really great sign for us. But it looks like we might be catching up to another bachelor herd through the trees here, actually. Now, elephants do like to be near clay pits like that one for a couple different reasons. The clay is going to be another really great source of vitamins and nutrients for them, so it is something else that they can eat if they need to. But they also actually have really sensitive skin, even though it might look pretty tough to us. And as the bulldozers of the savannah, they can't always rely on the shade from the trees to help them protect that skin from the sun. What they can do instead, though, that's really smart, is throw things like dirt, dust, mud, or even the clay on themselves if they need to. And when they're doing that, they're just using those things as a natural form of sunblock to better protect their skin from sunburn. With the elephants being here on the reserve, we do also get a lot of opportunities, not just to protect them, but to also study them and learn more about them. And one of the really interesting things that our researchers have learned is that even though they are one of the largest animals in the world, elephants are also still kind of afraid of the sound of bees. We've been able to use that information, though, to help farmers who were having trouble with elephant herd destroying their crops. The farmers were then able to build beehive fences, giving them a safe way to protect those crops from the elephants, and also giving them an additional source of income, because it meant they could harvest and sell the honey from inside. So it really worked out to being a win-win for them. Coming around the watering hole a bit more, we're also getting a great look at some greater flamingo. The greater flamingo are the largest species of flamingo, but also the lightest shade of pink out of any of the flamingo species as well. A couple of babies have hatched on the reserve recently, so you may also notice they don't hatch pink. They hatch gray with black legs, and they don't start to get that pink coloring until they're about a year old. When they do start to turn pink, it's also not something that they do entirely on their own either. They actually get all that pink coloring from all the beta carotene in the algae and the brine shrimp that they'll eat. Another pretty big mud hole up ahead in this next clearing here. The building doesn't look like there are any tusk marks in it though, so I don't think the elephants made that one. But it could be a really great sign of some more rhino activity as we move a little farther east through the reserve, since rhinos are another animal that will use mud to help cool down and protect their skin. We are starting to get pretty close to predator territory here, but we should still probably be on the lookout for rhinos just in case, because unfortunately their only predator out in the wild is still going to be the human, and they are still common targets for poaching because of their horns. Now, their horns aren't made of ivory like elephant tusks are though, they're actually made out of keratin, which is the same material our hair and fingernails are made out of. So we're also not quite sure why people do still seem to want the rhino horns so bad, since as far as we know, there's not really any scientific or medicinal value to having them. Actually, there is a cheetah, it looks like walking around over there on our left. Kind of hidden by the trees right now. Now the cheetahs are one of the only big cat species that will be active and do their hunting during the day. And they've got a couple of advantages that help with that. They've got black markings under their eyes that help absorb and reflect the sunlight. They're also the fastest land animal in the world, reaching running speeds of around 60 miles an hour. Now they can reach that speed in around 3 seconds, but it is also more of a sprint for them, so they can really only maintain it for a couple hundred yards or so. And if they don't capture their prey on their first attempt, it takes them so much energy to run at that speed that they're probably going to need to rest up and try again a little later on. One of the reasons the cheetahs can run so fast, though, is that they do have non-retractable claws. So their claws are out all the time, giving them a great source of traction for those runs. Ooh, actually, right as we come around the corner, that is a white rhino that's coming down that side road there. Now, the white rhino does get quite a bit larger than the black rhino that we got to see earlier. Fully grown, they're going to be around 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. They can still charge that 30 to 35 mile an hour speed, but luckily for us, they're also a lot more social. And they can actually usually be found in groups, so that one may have some more friends in this area that we should still be looking for. I do see it looks like a bontebok coming up on this hill on our right and some lions over here on the left. The lions are actually really great examples of nocturnal hunters. During the daytime, the lion's eyesight is going to be about the same as yours or mine, but at night it will be about 6 times more powerful. When they go on their hunts, the hunting is primarily handled by the females of the pride, and the male will stay behind to defend the territory and any cubs. Now, luckily for that bontebok, the lions actually also only hunt with about a 20% success rate. Bontebok is going to be another antelope species and also another species that gets the name from an Afrikaans word. Their name in Afrikaans means colorful buck. And that's because even though they have that dark brown coat, it does have almost like a purple or an iridescent sheen to it in the sunlight. I see some burrows down here, and a warthog that's grazing back there on that hill, which means that these are probably warthog burrows that we're seeing down on the ground. The warthogs are the largest burrowing species of animal, using their razor-sharp tusks and hooves to help them build their burrows. But they are also fans of working smarter, not harder. So if other animals have abandoned a burrow in an area, they'll just use those ones instead of having to make their own brand new ones. Then when they go to bed at night, they'll back into the burrow so that their tusks face outward, giving them a great way to defend themselves from predators as they sleep. For their size, warthogs are also surprisingly light on their feet. They can reach running speed of around 35 to 40 miles an hour, and they can even walk bouncing up and down with their tails straight up in the air. And they'll then use those tails to signal to other warthogs. The landscape is also starting to change around us again. We're going to start making our way back off the reserve, and I'll be dropping you guys back off at the warden's post in Harambe. Now, a lot of the animals that are here on the reserve are here because they really need our help and our protection, and a lot of them still appear on the endangered species list. But the good news is there are a lot of things that we can do to help protect them. And if you're wondering what you can do to help us protect the animals, one of the easiest things that we can do is just going to be to recycle. And even recycling just a single glass bottle will give us enough power that we can power a 100-watt light bulb for around 3 hours. So if you are looking to make a slightly bigger change, recycling things like our cell phones, laptops, and any other electronic devices is really important as well, because a lot of those electronic device batteries contain a mineral called coltan inside, and coltan is mined in a lot of environments these animals call home, leading to a lot of habitat destruction for them. But when we recycle those devices, especially as we get ready to upgrade them, that'll help create less of a demand to mine the coltan in the first place, and with our help, the animals continue to have their beautiful homes for many generations to come. Now, if you're also looking to see more animals than what we saw out here on the reserve today, I highly recommend visiting the Gorilla Falls Trail, and it's actually going to be just up the hill from the dock that I'm going to drop you guys back off at. It is a go-at-your-own-pace trail, so you can spend as much or as little time over there as you would like, and it is a great place to see animals we didn't get to see out on the reserve, like gorillas. You can easily spot a meerkat colony over there, and they also have their own viewing areas for the hippos, okapi, and zebra. If your travels also take you over to Asia today, over there they have the Maharaja Jungle Trek, where you can see some of the Asian animals like the Komodo dragon and the Sumatran tiger. It's going to be another go-at-your-own-pace trail as well, so you can spend as much time looking at the animals as you'd like. If I've had any Wilderness Explorers on board today, you have been riding on the Symbol 1. That's going to be on page 15 of your Explorer Guide to collect that badge. To collect your badge is actually going to be back down by the entrance to Safari. You'll see the Wilderness Explorers with their uniforms on.
So super awesome safari. My favorite thing to see on the safari are the lions, and they were out. Now they weren't active, they were all laying down. I got to see them all, the male, the females. Huge rhino came up really close to the truck. Zebra right next to the truck. So super awesome safari today. I'm super happy I got to see the lions. Thank you for watching part 2 of my trip to Animal Kingdom at Walt Disney World this past August and September of 2020. Please check back often as I will continue to upload videos from that trip. Thanks again for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you real soon.